Nikon's mirrorless cameras have come a long way since the original Z6 and Z7 in 2018. The shift to the Z mount afforded Nikon an opportunity to rethink their camera design and features, especially when it comes to video. Today, Nikon's latest update to their Z6 series inherits some features from their flagship cameras and debuts some new technologies. This is Nikon's Z6III full-frame mirrorless camera. Featuring the world's first partially stacked sensor and the XP7 processor, the Z6III is incredibly powerful for a prosumer camera. We'll go into detail later in the video, but the short version is that photographers can capture up to 20 frames per second raw images or an impressive 120 frames per second for JPEGs. Photographers will also love the pre-release capture function and HDR EVF that can reach up to 4000 nit brightness. Video shooters can record Nikon RAW and ProRes RAW internally. It also features 10-bit 422 and slow motion recording options. There are also improvements to autofocus, and line level input for audio files, and more. We were fortunate enough to take the camera out for 2 shoots last week to see if Nikon's newest sensor is fast enough to keep up with extreme sports while maintaining the image quality we've come to love from Nikon. Nikon's new partially stacked sensor technology splits the speed difference between fully stacked sensors like the one found in the Z9 and BSI sensors like the one found in the Z6 II. However, it maintains 24 megapixels, meaning that the sensor does not have to work as hard as the Z9. As a result, the Z6III almost matches the speed and performance of the Z9 thanks to its scaled down resolution. In practice, this made all the difference in the world while working with skateboarders. For starters, it meant that Sam could rely on a respectable 20 frames per second burst photo rate when taking raw images of the skateboarders. Now, to be fair, there are other prosumer cameras that can capture 20 frames per second raw images. However, there aren't many that can achieve up to 120 frames per second in JPEGs. The Z6III can take up to 60 24 megapixel JPEGs per second using the full sensor, or 120 10.6 megapixel JPEGs while in the crop sensor mode. For a bit of perspective, the Z6III captures photos fast enough to compete with slow motion video. If that wasn't enough, the Z6III also inherits the pre-release function from the Z9. The pre-release mode buffers up to 1 second before the photo is taken and 3 seconds after. This is relatively generous considering it can add up to hundreds of shots, depending on your desired settings. Combining a high-speed burst photo rate with a pre-release shutter buffer will empower photographers to focus more on composition and less on timing the perfect shot. Regarding video, the combination of the partially stacked sensor and XP7 processor presents videographers with a ton of recording options. For starters, videographers can shoot in Nikon RAW, ProRes RAW, ProRes HQ, H.265 10-bit 422, or H.264 8-bit 420 internally to CF Express Type B or SD cards. FYI, we strongly recommend CF Express Type B cards for everything ProRes and higher, especially if you plan to shoot at higher frame rates. For a manufacturer not known for video features, Nikon gave video shooters a lot to appreciate in this camera. After all, few prosumer cameras can offer 6K 60p, 4K 120p, and HD 240. But the icing on the cake is that the camera can autofocus in all of these modes. The Z6III inherits the 3D tracking autofocus from the Z8 and Z9 camera bodies. The autofocus on the Z6III is 20% faster than the Z6 II and capable of detecting subjects at as low as -10 EV. Whether the subject was far away, moving past the camera, or crossing the frame, the Z6III quickly recognized and tracked subjects. The Z6III debuts with a ton of improvements over its predecessor without cutting any corners on image quality. The Z6III sensor features 24.5 megapixels with an ISO range from 100 to 64,000, shutter speeds up to 1/16,000th of a second, and up to 8 stops of in-body vibration reduction. Photographers who want to go the extra mile in resolution and detail will be happy to hear that the Z6III has a pixel shift mode for combining up to 32 images to create a 96 megapixel file. As always, Nikon excels in portrait and fashion photography thanks to natural color rendering and pleasing skin tones. They've also added extra options to their flexible color picture controls. In addition to that, photographers can also apply new skin refining controls to minimize skin blemishes and imperfections in camera. Filmmakers also have a lot to love in this camera. As we mentioned before, the Z6 III can record in H.265 10-bit 422, ProRes HQ, ProRes RAW, and Nikon RAW. The H.265 codec is great for saving space. ProRes provides one of the most proven and easy-to-use editing workflows, and depending on your editor of choice, Nikon RAW and ProRes RAW give you the ultimate flexibility. Personally, I prefer to edit in DaVinci Resolve, so using Nikon RAW was a no-brainer. Thanks to their color managed workflow and RAW controls, Nikon's N-Log is easy to work with in DaVinci Resolve. Moreover, editing the RAW video directly in the timeline is feasible thanks to DaVinci Resolve's hardware optimization and proxy workflow. The camera offers ProRes RAW as an alternative for those who prefer Adobe Premiere. While it's not possible to record in ProRes RAW at as high speeds as Nikon RAW, ProRes RAW is an excellent option for creatives who need the flexibility of RAW but don't want to transcode their footage or edit in DaVinci Resolve. Unlike RAW files, just about every professional editing software can handle ProRes, which makes it extremely easy to work with. Moreover, the Nikon Z6 III super samples 5.4K when recording in 4K to offer exceptionally detailed video. We paired the brand new Z6 III with a vintage Nikon 50mm f1.2 to create a relatively affordable cinema rig, and we got some beautiful results. In addition to improving the performance, there are a bunch of quality of life improvements to the camera. The most notable is the new EVF. The electronic viewfinder features 5.76K resolution, can reach 4000 nits, and is compatible with the DCI-P3 color gamut. For comparison, it's twice as bright as an iPhone screen and 33% brighter than the EVF in the Z8 and Z9. The new EVF is both extremely bright and accurate, making it a great asset for photographers who take HDR images. When it comes to size and weight, the Z6 III is slightly heavier than its predecessor, weighing 1.65 pounds. Even with a slight increase in weight, the Z6 III is an excellent option for videographers who use single-handed gimbals. This is especially true because of the new 3.2-inch articulating screen. It's much easier to work with now that you can flip out the screen and rotate it to your liking. Video shooters will also appreciate the full HDMI port and the ability to feed line-level signals into the camera's 1/8-inch audio input. Last, but certainly not least, the Nikon Z6 III offers connectivity with other products and services. If you need to connect professional audio equipment, attach a Tascam CA XLR 2D to add 48-volt XLR inputs to the camera. Event, wedding, and other multicam shooters can save time in post-production by syncing timecode wirelessly with Atomos products. And anyone who needs to upload images to cloud-based services can do so with Wi-Fi natively in the camera or with Ethernet via an adapter. If it wasn't clear, Nikon Z6 III is much more than a successor to the Z6 II. If anything, the Z6 III feels more like a scaled-down version of the Z9. Any photographers who admire the speed of the Z9 but don't need 45 megapixel images or can't justify the cost will love the Z6 III. The new partially stacked sensor does a lot of work to level the playing field between the two cameras regarding speed. For the first time, amateur and aspiring photographers will be able to match the pace of their professional counterparts. Moreover, the new pre-release function makes it even easier to capture the perfect moment. However, to be clear, the Z6 III is not a replacement for the Z9. For example, if you're hired to photograph the Olympics, the Z9 is the best choice because it has better endurance and reliability due to larger capacity batteries, dual Safe Express Type B card slots, and a 1000 shot buffer. On the other hand, if you are attending the Olympics, the Z6 III is the best camera to build your portfolio and demonstrate your skills. Video shooters who have overlooked Nikon in the past will have a tough time ignoring the Z6 III. There aren't many entry-level digital cinema or mid-range hybrid cameras that can record 6K RAW internally. That list gets even shorter when you add autofocus at 4K 120p. Then there's wireless timecode, XLR attachments, cloud integration. There's just a lot for video amateurs and professionals to love about this camera. To sum this up, Nikon Z6III is an excellent option for photographers or videographers who want a taste of Nikon's high-end features on a mid-range budget. What are your thoughts on Nikon's Z6III? Is it a successor to the Z6 II, or is it 2/3 of a Z9? Let us know in the comments below. I'm Jabari with B&H. Have a beautiful day.